Hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk about the zero and first condition. The zero conditional is used to talk about general truth and results that always happen in the same way. When we talk about a general truth, we're talking about an event that always occurs in the same way. For example, when we talk about the sun, we normally say that the sun rises from the east. It's always like that. See? It's a general truth. And for example, the sun sets on the west. That is always like that. So we don't change or something doesn't change. It's always like that. So in this case, the result that always is the same is something that happens to each of us individually. I mean, it's something that we do all the time in the same way, or that always happens in the same way. When we talk about conditions, okay, we're talking about a situation that occurs and that makes or that has a consequence, which is called a result. Okay, so in this case, zero conditional and first conditional, they use two clauses. Remember, what is a clause? Remember that a clause is kind of sentence that contains a subject, a verb, and sometimes a complement, but doesn't have a complete meaning. Remember that previously we were talking about time clauses introduced with when. For that, when I was a child. When I was a child is not a complete idea. Well, here we're going to use another word, which is if, the word if. So that means that when the sentence starts with the if, okay, with this word, it means that we don't have a complete idea. We need something else to complete the sense of the sentence. So this is why we have here two types of sentences. The first one is what we call the main clause or the if clause. Okay. And in the second case, we have the result clause. All right. What is the result clause? The consequence of the condition. Okay. If we say, if the milk smells bad, I don't do it. Okay. That is, what is the condition? The bad condition of the milk. And what is the result? I don't drink. Now, is that all the time? Does it happen all the time when the milk is damaged, when the milk is not in good conditions? You don't drink it? Well, that is a result that always happens in the same way. The second example, we have again a sentence introduced by the word with the word if. If water reaches 100 degrees Celsius, okay, it boils. So what is the consequence? The water boils. Why does it boil? Because we heat it 100 degrees Celsius. So the condition is we heat it at 100 degrees Celsius. And what is the result? It boils. This is a general truth because it's always like that, right? So here we're talking about two things, okay, that are in which we use the zero condition. What is the zero conditional? Well, first, there is always the presence of the word if. Okay? When you see if, immediately that is a conditional sentence. But now let's see what kind of conditional sentence it is. Now, check the tenses. The tense in the first, sorry, the tense in the first sentence is present simple, right? And what about in the second part of the sentence? Present simple as well. So the combination of present simple and present simple indicates that we have here a zero conditional sentence. Okay, let's check the second one if it happens the same. As you can see, reaches is in third person singular. It indicates that it's present simple. And the second one also present simple, boils. So once again, we are under the presence of a zero conditional. So this is the pattern that is more common for this type of conditional tense. Present simple in the first part, present simple in the second. Okay. Now, if introduces the sentence. When that happens, notice that we need to use comma to separate the conditional sentence and the result sentence. How do we know when the result sentence starts? When we have another sub, and then we have the verb. Okay. In the second part, we have it and then the words. You see? Now, is it possible to change the order of these sentences? Yeah. We can have the result clause at the beginning, and then we have I don't drink. Sorry. I don't drink milk if it smells. Okay? Or if it smells bad. Now, what is the difference now that we are using if in the middle of a sentence? Why? Because we need to connect the clauses. What in the first part we have I, the subject I, the verb I don't drink. In the second part we have it smells. So we have another subject, another verb. How do we connect them? By the use of something important. When this happens, when if is in the middle of the sentence, we don't need a comma. The comma is used only if the word if is located at the beginning of the sentence. If milk smells bad, I don't drink it. Case in the written form, we use the comma. So essentially, these are the most important details of the first of the zero conditional sentence. Now, there are two more forms that we can find out in the sentence. Remember that I told you that we have present simple and present simple. This is the most common, and this is the one I recommend you to use all the time. But what happens when there is another person tells you, for example, sentence number 3, if I've drunk, I never drive. Notice that in the if sentence, we have present perfect, you see? Not present simple, present perfect. But in the results, we always have present simple. Notice the first sentence, notice the second sentence, notice the third sentence. What about sentence number 4? I can't concentrate, that is present simple. So in the result clause, always present simple, okay? But what happens in the if clause? Well, we can have present simple, we can have present perfect, okay, as we have in sentence number 3, and also we can have present continuous, okay? But always remember in the result clause, present simple. Okay? If people are talking all the time, I can't concentrate. But if I say if people talk all the time, I can't concentrate. It's the same thing. Okay. Now, with the present perfect and the present continuous, people normally use it because they want to indicate a result that always happens. Okay, a result that always happens, right? And in the case of general truth, it's more common to use present and present. But don't worry, because present and present is also used to indicate results that always happen. Okay? That's why I recommend you to use present and present. But just in case, you can see that there are two different if clauses. Present perfect, present continuous. Now, this is related to the zero condition. What happens with the first condition? Here we have. The first conditional is used to talk about things that might happen in the future. Okay? Something that might happen in the future. When we have might in here, it means that there is a possibility, but not very high. So maybe it's like 50%, 60%, why not 40% of probability that that situation is going to happen. What situation? Let's look at this example. Once again, we have the use of if. Remember that always you see if, immediately you recognize that that is a conditional. Is this zero conditional? Well, let's see. Remember that in zero conditional, we have present simple in the first part, present simple in the second. Okay? When I say in the first part, I'm talking about in this case of the if clause. There are two more options, present perfect and present continuous. Okay? Here we have present simple. Well, we have one of the options. About the second part, remember that in the result clause, which is the one that doesn't have the if clause, remember, no if, the if is in the first part. In the result clause, we don't have if. In zero conditional, we said that it only have the chance to have present simple. But what happens in here? We have future simple. Oh, when you have present simple and future simple, immediately that is what we know by first condition. Okay? So what happens in here is that we have present simple in the if clause, future simple in the result. If you study, you'll pass. So that means that I'm telling you something that can happen in the future. This is just an estimation. This is just a hypothetical situation. You see? That's what I think can happen in the future. You see? I don't use present present. In this case, I need to use future. All right? In the zero conditional, I talk about things that happen always, all the time. It's like a routine, you see? But in this case, I'm talking about something in the future. And I use future simple in the result. Now, there are two other forms. Well, there are more, but let's check two more now. If I have present simple, if it doesn't call you, tell me immediately. So we can use imperative. You see? If uh, if you have a headache, take a pill. Immediately. I'm telling you that, well, tomorrow, you're going to travel tomorrow by boat, and you normally have, you're seasick, right? You normally have problems when you travel by boat. And then I tell you, well, if you get sick or if you have a headache, take a pill. But I'm telling you something that you can do in the future. You see? And the third example says, if you come to class, the exam is going to be easy. The tense that we are using in here, future with going to. Okay. So this is the other form that we can find out in the if in the result clause, where the result clause can be future with will, future with going to, or the imperative. And immediately you recognize that is the first condition. Remember that the first condition is used to talk about something that can happen in the future, and there is not a great certainty. Right? Something that I want to check as well is the use of may and might. That also can happen, or that also can be in your consequence or in your result clause. Let's check, for example, this one. If you don't save your money, notice that we start with if immediately, that is a condition, right? If you don't save your money, you may have to get a weekend job, okay? So in this case, you're using may. In the next one, if you have to get a weekend job, you might not have free time. So I'm talking about possibilities, something that can happen in the future, you see? But it's not completely sure. It's just a hypothetical situation, okay? Now, one more thing. When we have to refer to in future, we use be able to. So you don't say you can. Possible. Okay? This is not correct. If you want to use can in the future, you have to use you'll be able to buy. You'll be able to drink. You'll be able to rest. You see? And one more thing, must is not used in future. So in that case, we use have to. If you can use it with will, okay, you will have to. Okay, so I'm talking about something that is mandatory, that you have to do in the future, but in future, so you use will have to. You don't use will must. Will can. In those cases, you use will be able to or you will have to. Okay, so well, these are the only forms that we can have in zero and first condition. Essentially, this is this unit about. The rest is for you to practice. Okay, for example, in this exercise, you have the if clauses in column A and the result clauses in column B. The idea is that you match what is the correct option for each of them. In some cases here, we can have different options. Depends. And then I invite you to prepare your own sentences, your own results. For example, If you eat less fast food, you think what happens to you? What can happen to you? Because we're talking about first conditional tense, right? If you eat less fast food, right? You can continue by you'll be able to, you'll save money, okay? You uh oh, remember that we can use also negative sentences. It's not only affirmative. You will, you can say you want, okay? And there is not a combination. I mean, say affirmative here, negative here, or negative here, positive here. There is not such a combination. That depends on the meaning or the information you want to share. Okay. So, I hope you practice a lot with the exercises we have in this material. Remember, you have the PDF material in the virtual classroom. We also have it in your WhatsApp group. Okay. See you next class. Next class, remember, we will have a workshop. Okay, you can work in couples or in groups for free by practicing with these. Well, see you then.